divine Mar-HuAna brings immortality. Let's turn this down. Greetings, sisters and brothers. Proof B here. And first things first. Libations to the ancestors. So, sisters and brothers, hamada. Sometimes it gets me. You know, from my understanding, I am not a grower. From my understanding, the more it makes you cough, the less the grower cultivate it or let it mature, let it sit for a while and mature. So when you cough a lot, that means they just been growing it and getting it out on the street. So we'll get into all that later. So, I had to think about what is this video? So what I'm about to do is play a video, but since I'm not technologically, out there, I'm gonna play the video, but you're just gonna hear the audio of the brother, Ben Carson. When you get old and smoke, it's like, okay, what was this guy name? Oh, Ben Carson. So I'm gonna be playing the video, but you're just gonna hear what he's saying because it's really, really deep. And play the music like this is ancient Egyptian meditation music. And then every once in a while, when something hits me, I'm going to stop Ben Carson from talking and interject my own. So the whole idea is that I'm kind of experimenting with making these videos, Okay, so Ben Carson. Let's turn this music down a little more. I like the music, but I want to hear what Ben has to say.
It's like a marketing piece, but it's a phenomenal piece. It's really showing to me the elevation of consciousness and walking through that, which is really a star tetrahedron at the top. kind of in the seed life pattern, which is the Merkaba. But today we're going to talk about Merkaba quantum walking. And we're going to talk about the Merkaba, what it is, but I'm going to get very scientific, okay? But I'm going to do it in a way that everybody's going to be able to understand what I'm saying. The way that I do my lectures and the way that I teach is more based on physics and sciences, esoteric wisdom, and knowledge from ancient sages, and handed down verbal histories as well, so that I can give you a breakdown of how this stuff works. Because the biggest problem that I find in society is, when it comes to knowledge, is we've learned how to memorize the answers, and we don't know how to get to the answer. If I give you a multiplication test right now, everybody in here, I hope, can give me the answer to 2 times 2 and 4 times 4 and so forth and so on. But how do you know the answer? Because you memorize the answers. You just went down the answer column as a kid, and you memorized, oh, when I see this, it's this. But did you ever take the time to figure out why 2 times 2 equals this? Why 5 times?
So, first interruption or interjection. That's part of the point of what I teach, is like, are we really learning, or are we just repeating something that was, just given to us? This is 1 and 1 makes 2, this is 3, da 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 da. They, is this just stuff we repeating? Are you really learning, or are you just memorizing? Let's move on.
Times 5 equals this. A lot of people have never taken the time to do that. And that just transcends into every other aspect of life. We're taught to just know answers. We're taught in school to be good test takers, okay? But never really understanding the process to get from A to B. And so what I like to do when I teach these things, because we're dealing with spirituality, but spirituality is deeply entangled with quantum physics and quantum mechanics. You can't escape it. You just can't. And when I show you today what I'm going to show you, you're going to realize it can't be separated. They both two go together. Science and
I'll put the link so you can see the pictures of what he's talking about.
And science over here. That's to keep you, that's another divide and conquer tactic to keep you from reaching your ultimate goal of spiritual attainment. Okay? So we're going to talk about the fundamental underlying basis of why this stuff actually works. And we're going to spend some time on that, because when you walk out of here today, the main thing I want everybody to take with them is, now I understand when I think this way, when I think that way, when I pray this way, when I do this or when I do that, this is why it's working. Because you'll be able to see the step-by-step process and actually visualize something in your head that's actually really truly happening. And I think when you can visualize what's happening, you know what's happening, versus relying on thinking it's a magic sky daddy with a magic wand, like, bing, it happened, some kind of genie coming out of a bottle.
Okay, so this is why I'm doing this video with this specific lecture that Mr. Carson is doing, because it relates directly to what I am about to unveil, bring out to the public, getting our consciousness into the DNA to make changes within yourself. It's going to get deep.
Your wish is by command. I think when I take that part of it away and give you the power into yourself and let you understand, oh, the power's in me, and I can do this and I can do that, and this is why I can do this and I can do that. I think it's going to be a lot better for you, and a lot better for your family and people that
not me.
The information to.
You don't want to follow me.
So without further ado, let's get into it. I always play my little intro here. I like this intro.
Like I said, I'll put the link so you can see the actual video. I don't know how to do this yet.
Like Jimmy said, I'm a field researcher, and this is important for me to say because people need to understand I'm not just on Google
How do you
searching
put that
images.
picture in picture, you
And
know?
not to take anything away
I'm
from
learning
people,
all
that's
this
all that
stuff.
they have access to, because that's better than the average person. But to get to the level that I'm teaching at, you have to get out in the field and you got to get your hands dirty. You have to get out there and talk to homegrown researchers. You have to get out there and talk to homegrown archaeologists, people who come from that area, from that region,
Whatever you
indigenous
do.
people. You can't just rely on this generalized, Wikipedia type information. And sometimes you can't really rely on everybody's YouTube videos either. You got to go out there for yourself and get some answers for yourself, and then compare it to everything else that you heard, saw, and read.
Real life.
And then take the information that you could best
I've been
do
smoking
and
for
piece it
50
together.
years.
Here I'm at the Great Pyramid of Giza. I'm inside the King's Chamber, and I'm standing right next to that box that they call a sarcophagus. I can't even fit in that box. I'm too tall. I'm 6'4". My feet, I'm like come up to my chest when I got inside of that thing. But what's really amazing is the exact dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant used to sit inside that box. And the reason why they chased
those
Moses,
dimensions are in the Bible.
Akhenaten, the reason why they chased Akhenaten down after he fled from Egypt, well, first Akhenaten fled from Egypt. He was kicked out of Egypt, I should say, because he was defacing all the gods. The sun disk, Aten, or Amun, Amun-Ra, Amen, the Amen, gave him the order to deface all gods. There'll be no other gods but him. He ushered in monotheistic mindset into Egypt, and he was erasing history of the hieroglyphs. That's where all the broken faces and noses come from, sorry to say. I thought initially too, what I heard the rumors of, you see why you can't listen to YouTube and stuff like that, until I got on an airplane and went out there for myself and saw temples that had 8,000-year-old hieroglyphs that were all chipped off. There was nobody going, I gotta chip these off to hide the fact that who these people were. No, I'm sorry. It was done by Amun-Ra. It's in the it's in the glyphs. Amun-Ra ordered it, and Akhenaten fled out of there and left out of there with that Ark of the Covenant. And when the Pharaoh realized that he took the source of power, the new Pharaoh, they had to chase him down. And he didn't cross the Red Sea. That's the mistranslation in the King James Bible. He crossed the Sea of Reeds, a much closer and much smaller sea as well. And that's just by translating down into Aramaic.
Now we get into religion.
Figure that out. But a lot of people know about it in terms of the people that are teaching that information, but they'll never change the story because it just sounds, the historical version, the mythological version sounds too fantastic. So it's really amazing stuff. The ancient Egyptians had meters per second. They had a metric system in ancient times. Forget about what you know about, we just got the metric system and so forth and so on, 1960, whatever. That's garbage. Whoever that was, I think I forget the gentleman's name at this moment, he probably found these Proto-Sumerian tablets that were found in Mexico, which are well documented that they had a metric system back then, Proto-Sumerian. Proto-Sumerian found in the South Americas, okay, on this side of the ocean. They had a metric system, and what's really amazing is the speed of light can be discovered in the longitude of the Grand Gallery is the same digits of the speed of light in meters per second. This whole structure was designed this way for a specific reason, to let us know how technologically advanced these beings were, and they turned the Great Pyramid into a multifunctional stone computer. This is me at the Temple of Abydos. I'm standing there, actually pointing directly up. It's kind of blurred up here, I guess. Maybe it's better on the corners. I'm pointing up at these glyphs. It's about maybe 40 meters above my head. But these glyphs were not re-etched over, re-carved over, what the mainstream would tell you. If you get the homegrown archaeologists like I had, they will tell you that they're told to say that by
you have to figure out how to get
these are just mistakes, they're accidents, they didn't really
how to
exist.
show
He said not only did they carve that way, but there's many more around the region.
video
and he showed me the other ones. Okay?
Type
and
stuff.
some of those I had to pay off pyramid priests and guards to go into underground crypts and stuff to get down there to see these things and take pictures of them.
I'm still learning.
So they're real. There's not just this one spot that at Abydos. There are depictions of advanced technology all over Egypt.
I'm not showing that.
I'm at the top of Valle Tatumbo in Peru. This was an amazing trip. I saw so much stuff there that would just blow you away. I'm at the Osirian Temple, which is right by Abydos, where they discovered the flower of life symbol. I don't know if you can see it from where you are.
Okay, I'm gonna move on because he's just showing.
Etched into it like on the atomic level. Not carved or chipped into
and
the stone,
y'all can't see it, so
etched directly into the pillar. Pleiadian glyphs. So this Gosford documentary work, Gosford Glyphs documentary, is going to be mind blowing. And I got to get with elders and everything. So A variety of mystery religions existed in the ancient world, such as the mystery of Demeter and Eleusis,
We'll
Mithras,
move on.
and the Orpheus. You know, you heard of Morpheus on the Matrix. Well, Orpheus is actually a true religion, believe it or not. That's where they got it from. A lot of things like that will correlate with the Matrix, as you'll see throughout my presentation. Swearing oaths to keep proceedings secret. As a result, the substance of their beliefs and the nature of their ritual has been almost entirely lost. So we're like a species with amnesia, which you've heard before. What happens is, in these mystery schools, which were hand-picked people, what would happen after a certain amount of time, the information would get lost because new initiates wouldn't be selected. As these deified gods would leave, disappear, die, whatever, go wherever they go, it's just like if I started a rumor here with this man in his ear and whispered to him and say, pass it on. By the time it got all the way around through everybody and got back to this side, this lady will have a slightly different story than what I told you. And that's what happens in this whole thing about these secret societies and these ancient mysteries. When it's all handed down verbally, you never really get the exact same story that went in. And then over time, things get forgotten. So if by midway through that journey of the information going around, there's a cataclysm, and now a whole generation has passed before somebody that was the last survivor who heard a little bit from their mother when they were 8 years old can now tell their children. Now it's a little bit more conjecture in there. So we have lost a lot of information. We all know how to use a cell phone, but if there was an EMP pulse right now that knocked out all electronics, none of us in here, maybe somebody in here can, but the most of us couldn't make a cell phone. And if we could, we can't make everything else that needs to work along with the cell phone system to make it a functioning system. So it's a very tricky thing, and it's very easy to get this amnesia. People always wonder, how do we lose all of this? It really is so easy. We've only been existing for literally less than a blink of an eye on a geological time scale. Less than a blink of an eye. Less than the time it takes you to blink your eye, human beings have been on this planet. Okay, just if you look at a geological time scale. And when a small cataclysm, a small overrule, kingship that dominates or whatever takes over, like the Papal Inquisitions. If we didn't have the Papal Inquisitions, the Arabs would have been on the moon in the 1800s. That's how fast they were advancing. In the 1800s, they would have been on the moon. The Papal Inquisition killed 80 million people and dominated Catholicism around the entire planet through, unfortunately, murder, rape, and torture and force. And that's how come everybody speaks these various languages, not their indigenous languages. But it's just a fact that happened. But that's slowed down. So things like that pop up from time to time and then just squash out a lot of our advancement and take us back down that rabbit hole into, this amnesia state. The force is real, and that's, primarily what we're talking about today, the force, the energy force, the thing that really truly binds us, like Yoda says in Star Wars. It's really a true statement. I mean, when you look back at Star Wars, after being more conscious, you realize how many super nuggets were dropped, like knowledge bombs were dropped in Star Wars, right? I mean, amazing stuff. They really went and got some real gurus to drop some of that dialogue. And the force truly is this energetic grid that we're all sitting on right now. We're all part of this energetic grid and we're all connected. So the illusion of this separation here gives us a feeling of individuality. But in truthfulness, I'm up here talking to you guys, but I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to myself. And when you're talking to somebody, you're talking to yourself. There's only one consciousness. The only thing that's different here is that consciousness has literally separated itself into trillions and trillions of entities to experience itself subjectively from different perspectives, because it wants to collect information. I just came from a spiritual panel, and we were talking about, I talked a little bit about how the brain is encased in darkness, and the brain doesn't know anything. It doesn't see, smell, feel, hear. It doesn't know nothing. It's encased in darkness, but it has friends, your senses. So it says to its friends, go out there and collect some information. This is as above, so below. Keep this in mind. So the brain, it would be consciousness, the creating consciousness of this entire third dimension. Think about it that way. The brain sends out hearing, smell, touch, feel, sight, and they come back with data, digital bits of information. Information that the brain now can collect and process. And then the brain projects a hologram as to what's going on outside, and you navigate through this electromagnetic matrix based off of a hologram projected from digital bits of zeros and ones collected by a sensory system. So if you take that and bring it up to above, now think of the mass divine consciousness that creates this entire universe. And we are the friends of that consciousness that have now broken off, and we're out here doing what? Collecting data. That's your mission here. You're collecting data and sending it, you're going to find out, directly back to source on a consistent basis. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're uploading information back to source, nonstop. And that's really what it's all about. The day, Nikola Tesla had a famous saying, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all previous centuries in its existence. Think about that. We're talking about non-physical phenomena. We're talking about the unseen. But we're going to take away the magic sky daddy with the white robe and the wand. We're taking that away. I'm sorry. If you believe in that, then you may not want to stay this presentation. And I'm not saying that there's not a divine creator, because I believe in divine creator, because quantum physics tells me that there's a divine creator of this realm. The energy in you is divine, making you divine, making you a creator as well, or nothing would be here. This book wouldn't be written, this podium wouldn't be created, this laptop wouldn't exist. All of us are creators. Because why? As above, so below. We're duplicating what the creator does. So what I'm saying to you is, there's a process to get to this level of understanding to be able to make this creation and manifest reality. And that involves quantum mechanics and quantum physics. That's the underlying basis. That's the 2 times 2. All things in all universes move according to law. And the law which regulates the movement of the planets is no more immutable than the law which regulates the material expressions of man. One of the greatest of all cosmic laws is that which is responsible for the formation of man as a material being. The main objective is to reveal the workings of the law which connect the man the material and man the spiritual. The connecting link between the material man and the spiritual man is the intellectual man. For the mind partakes of both the material and immaterial qualities. The aspirant for higher knowledge must develop the intellectual side of his nature and so strengthen his will that is able to concentrate all powers of his being on and in the plane he desires. The great search for light, life, and love only begins on the material plane. Carried to its ultimate, its final goal is complete oneness with the universal consciousness. The foundation in the material is the first step, then comes the higher goal of spiritual attainment. Concealed in the words of Thoth are many meanings that do not appear on the surface. Light of knowledge brought to bear on these tablets will open many new fields for thought. Read and be wise, but only if the light of your own consciousness awakens a deep-seated understanding, which is the inherent quality of the soul. We're talking about some deep stuff here today, guys. And we're going to go in. We're going to really get deep. The universe runs on natural laws. And these are some of the laws that I talk about quite a bit. Binding immutable conditions that govern consequences of behavior. General principles of natural law. The principle of mentalism, which we're going to talk about right away. The principle of correspondence. The principle of vibration. The principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of gender. The principle of mentalism, which is really primarily the majority of what we've got to talk about today, is understanding that all is mind. Everything is mind, as above, so below. We are most likely living in a fractal holographic conscious mind matrix. And so when you look and analyze the way that the synapses occur between the neurons in the brain, you begin to realize that it creates this holographic type of a field that your brain projects, and it's the same exact thing for the universe. So we're living in a fractal holographic matrix, and that doesn't take away the fact that it could be a biological entity. It just, that's the format that's used to generate this illusion of reality. The fact that you think you're sitting here isn't even an illusion. There's 7.5 billion people on Earth. But if I take away all the empty space and the atoms of every person on this planet, I can fit everybody into one sugar cube. You're not even here. You're not even here. This is what you've got to understand. As a matter of fact, one of the white papers I'm working on is talking about atoms of 99.999% empty space. And one of the white papers I'm talking about with working on trash, dumps, is removing using a specific type of energy source to remove the empty space, collapse the empty space in between the atoms and the trash. And you can have 50 tons of trash be less than a crumb if you can remove the empty space. So that's the future of trash management. It's not going to be burning and trying to turn it into gas and all this other kind of crazy stuff. It's going to be just removing the empty space in the atoms, and it's gone. Memory. So some scientists got 20 people together, and they took them out into a city area, and they said, let's just go for a walk. Didn't tell them exactly what the study was truly about. Just went for a walk a few blocks and came back to the laboratory. And he wanted to see what people's minds were picking up subconsciously, because your mind records every single thing. Every person that you saw on your way to this event, every person's clothing or outfit, every car you saw on the way here, every license plate that you didn't realize you saw, all that's stored in your brain. Every single bit of it's in your brain right now, all of it. Every fine, minute detail is inside of your brain right now. So they took the people back and they started asking them what did they see. And they gave some very mundane answers, people walking, a few cars, some offices, and some stores. Then they put them under a hypnosis with a real hypnotist. And they started tapping into the subconscious. And people started recalling license plate numbers. They started recalling what they saw in store windows and what kind of jewelry it was. They started recalling conversations that they heard as they were walking down the street, that people were talking just as they walked by. They even noticed buildings and signs of stores that they would never even think of going into, but they knew the names of those stores now, and they knew the names of the signs on the outside of the buildings. This was a real scientific study that was done. Now, some people may want to say it's kind of a pseudo because they used a hypnotist, but it was duplicated several times. And when you duplicate something and the same thing happens, you got to kind of say, this might not be a coincidence. The human brain is really picking up everything. Everything is mind, everything is consciousness. You're downloading information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop. They really were able to recall all these different aspects of the walk they went on, and they were themselves completely surprised about it. So we're going to talk a lot about the mind today. We're going to talk about the neocortex. You know the movie The Matrix, Neo? Well, they got the name from the neocortex, okay? And the neocortex is Latin for new bark or new rind. It's also called the neophallium. It's part of the brain in mammals. It's the outer layer of the cerebral hemispheres and made up of 6 layers, labeled 1 through 6, 6 being the innermost and 1 being the outermost. And the neocortex is the part of the cerebral cortex, and it's also sometimes known as the archaeocortex or paleocortex. They're cortical parts of the limbic system in humans, but the most important part about this is it's involved in higher functions such as sensory perception, generation of motor commands, spatial reasoning, conscious thought, and language. So it's not just a name. They call them Neo for a reason. Conscious thought is the biggest part of this. Spatial reasoning, understanding the world around you, being able to navigate through this matrix and how it works, and seeing beyond the veil. So we're going to talk about how light equals intelligence. Light is actually intelligent. Not only light, we're going to find even something else is intelligent, but it's really going to blow you away. But light definitely equals intelligence. This is from physics.org. The first ever photograph of what was a light wave and also then becoming a particle. So light can be
Go
a wave,
to the
a frequency
link
wave,
to
and
see the pictures.
when consciousness interacts with it, it can collapse into a particle. And this is the very first photo that was taken of light converting in the middle stages of going from wave to particle. What does that mean? Everything in the third dimension exists as a light wave. First, everything, including your body. Your body is a wave of light, a wave of potentials, electromagnetic frequencies. That's all you really, your avatar body is. But your subatomic frequency will re-assimilate back to the structure that you recognize as you when consciousness collapses it into that format. When conscious observers, in other words, a person observing you from the outside, or you even observing yourself, collapses yourself back into what you recognize as a solid object. Right now, you're not at home. Your home doesn't exist as a solid object. Your home is a wave of light, a wave of potentials, with a specific frequency in every block that creates the actual property, the actual structure. When you get back to your house and you get close to it, it collapses back into your house again. Now you say, well, somebody is at my house right now. They see the house. Consciousness collapses electromagnetic frequencies into solid matter. And we're going to show you this in real science, real peer-reviewed science, in a second here. I'm going to go to Dr. Quantum.
So, what they taught us in school isn't really the way it is. And that our senses are playing tricks on us. You just gotta wonder, what is this reality that we find ourselves in? Quantum physics says it's all just waves of information. Do I believe that?
I don't believe anything. If I don't know.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or
Go to the
balls
link
of matter,
so you can see the video.
if we randomly shoot a small
I don't know if
object,
this is gonna
say
work.
a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now, there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they can interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle.
Interferes
But
with
mathematically,
itself.
it's even stranger. It goes through both slits and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. Physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing
Did I forget?
which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched.
I was making a video.
It was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this?
So you see,
I just went somewhere else.
the act of looking, observation, conscious intervention collapses waves into potential solid objects. This is science fact, not fiction. So when I tell you that your house is an electromagnetic wave of light, when you're not there, that's what it is. If you play a video game, as above, so below never fails. A video game is the exact reproduction of how we live our lives. The next frame appears as you need it in the video game. And as you move forward, the next part of the frame appears, and the next challenge appears, and there's even reincarnation in video games. As soon as you don't learn your lesson and you get killed, you get another life and you start all over again. As above, so below never fails.
That don't
Never.
happen in
And that's
third
what we're doing.
dimension.
So a human being exists both as solid matter and a wave of light. So you are light, and what do we know about light and what do we know about electrons? They're intelligent. Light has intelligence. Okay? This is something that you really have to understand, because this is the fundamental basis of getting to the next level. Understanding that every single atom in your body is intelligent. And
Now, we have been taught in the Western world and in the modern Western world that intelligence is a gathering of all these different, information, different facts of everything. Again, just collecting a bunch of facts which you repeat. No, intelligence and learning is really something that happens within yourself, and it's something that you have to work at. It's not in a pill. It's like I teach immortality. That sounds like off the chain, but when you learn it, and then when you learn that you have to do these things, like you can study breathing, but if you're not doing the breathing exercises, you're not going to get any, you're not going to advance, you're not going to get any profit out of it. So, back to Billy Carson.
And the reason why that's important is because you have trillions and trillions of atoms in your body that make up your body, okay? So add all that consciousness together. It's really incredible the amount of potential that a human being has. Now, word of the week, electromagnetic spectrum. Obviously, you can see here, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet, that you guys know of, are the light waves that we normally can see as human beings. Everything else is we can't see it. We just can't see it, and it's a good thing, because if you can see everything that was going on in this room right now, it would freak you out. You couldn't handle it. I'm just telling you. If you can see in gamma, if you can see in X-ray, if you can see in multi-spectrum, ultraviolet, infrared, you would see all kind of things happening all around us right now. And you'd be like, what? So we've been set up with this limited perception of what we call visible light, which is what you see when you see a rainbow. As light goes through a like a fractal, it's broken off and the different light rays break off, and these are only colors that we can actually see. So visible light, the electromagnetic waves of your eyes that your eyes can detect, oscillate between 790 terahertz. That's several hundred trillion times a second. The wavelengths are roughly the size of a large virus. So we see nothing that's truly really going on out here. And like I said, here's gamma rays, you have ultraviolet light, radar. We have this small slither that we're given, that we can get access to. But everything is light. Every atom in your body is made from light, and it even goes deeper than that. This is an image from the Very Large Baseline Array that shows the galaxy M33, what it looks like if you can see in radio waves. This is the image map of the atomic hydrogen gas in the galaxy, and the different colors that map velocities in the gas. Red gas is always moving away, and blue is moving towards us. And the reason why I'm showing you radio waves, anybody here ever heard of I Love Lucy? Okay. There's an old show that I'm aging myself. I used to watch it all the time. But those shows are still going through space, traveling through space right now. Those radio waves that created that show or that emanated that show are still traveling through space-time. In some distant future, if some alien race is able to decode those radio waves, they can watch I Love Lucy, okay? So think about that, because that's a very important statement I just made. By the way, I just rotated it just a little bit, and look what happened. I'm just messing with you guys. Paracas Galaxy. Now, it's really amazing that it is in that shape, though. It really, truly is. It's kind of weird. Let's take a look at this video here.
Well, let me see. I don't know. Maybe you can.
So this research is about alternative ways of storing data, digital data, for archival purposes.
Are y'all still seeing me, or can you see
The
this
initial thought was,
video?
I don't care what I'm building.
I don't know.
Why don't we just build Moby Dick or something? I'll just encode it into DNA. We'll just build that because I don't want to worry about the design at this point.
Sri and I debated what we should encode, what would nicely represent the digital universe, and we wanted something that represented sort of modern digital. So we used an HTML version of a book that I wrote recently called The Genesis. The HTML form, let's say the web form, includes images, digital images. It includes JavaScript programming language that actually does perform something interactively with the person. And so we encoded that into zeros and ones and then into DNA.
DNA.
That's important, okay? And the reason why that's important is because DNA stores memory. So I mean, it's kind of a long video, but to summarize what he's saying is these scientists discovered that DNA can store.
So, this is why I'm doing this video, because what he's talking about on here, as far as now, something I haven't, storing digital information in DNA. So, this is all some new level stuff, because I have created a movement, a form that gives you access to each of the 64 codons of your DNA. Let me make sure that y'all seeing me. So I have made a form that lets you tap into each of the 64 codons of your DNA to be able to change or reverse traumas, etc. So, listen to what these guys are saying. It's not just me. It's not just me. But separate from what we're listening to now, I've created a form, a movement, as opposed to just the science and just the talking. I have created a actual physical movement that can connect us to all the non-physical stuff that they talk about.
Store digital bits of information. Okay, so they discovered how to use the light codes in DNA to store data. And now, that ebook that he was talking about, they replicate.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. You can store data in your DNA. So now, if you have a trauma or whatever, and you can consciously now go into your DNA, you can put data in data in there that kind of reverses the old data. I'm getting too deep for my damn self.
It 80 billion times onto 1 gram of DNA. A gram is a drop on the tip of your finger.
8 billion.
So 1 gram of DNA can store 80 billion copies of that book. It can store 433 petabytes of digital data.
Wow.
Zeros and ones.
Wow.
And it can be not only downloaded to the DNA, but uploaded back to the server again.
Wow.
And they discovered that it's also wireless. So now they realize that DNA sends and receives information wirelessly.
It has to be wireless because it's you. It's
Wi-Fi
in you.
signal right now, or I wouldn't be able to give this presentation because some of my stuff is linked through web, right? What is a Wi-Fi frequency?
can
What is
change.
Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi is light.
Hmm.
Light that then carries zeros and ones. So this laptop right now is sending waves of light out to a receiver and downloading information from that same receiver back and forth with light waves that are piggybacked zeros and ones on top of it. Okay? Light is the trick here. Light is the secret. Scientists discovered how to turn light into physical matter.
Light
It took
thought.
it was an 80-year quest. And basically what happened is this
Electromagnetism.
Bretton-Wheeler University, these guys got together and they started talking, and Max Planck walked in and they were having a cup of coffee trying to figure out what Thoth talked about in the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets here, turning light into solid matter in ancient times, right? Well, they just figured out how to do it. They just rediscovered it. And they now, this is physics.org, by the way, guys.
Okay, so he's not making any reference to it in what he just said, turning light into solid matter. Now, all you have to do is close your eyes and visualize something in your mind, whatever you feel like visualizing. What are you looking at with your eyes closed in your mind? It has to be light, because if you just close your eyes, all you're going to see is darkness. So you visualize something before it's actually material. So you actually create things in your mind before you create them in physical reality.
They now have turned light into solid matter. So everything that the
Oh, so I had to turn that back on because I forgot where I was going. So I'm saying what he's not saying is that Einstein said this way back around when I was born in the 50, 60, 56 or whatever. E equals mc squared. Now, of course, the beast used it in reverse. They took energy and made the atom bomb. The atom bomb. They made the big ass bomb and blew up Japan or over there. They blew all those people up. Taking that formula and taking light and then making atoms blow up. Each atom keep blowing up and they keep blowing up and they keep blowing up. But it's the same thing in reverse. Light comes into manifestation as you. We think, or you think anyway, most of you think that light or your spirit is separate from your physical body because you shed your physical body. But no, the practices that I teaches you to combine your physical body with your higher spiritual body and transform so that you don't lose the physical body. And now we get into the story of Jesus. Let's move on.
ancients were doing, we're just now rediscovering. But if we can turn light into solid matter, Thoth talks about being able to do it with your own consciousness. You see? This is where I'm going with this. We're doing it technologically and figuring out the basis of how to make it happen. But there's a way that he was able to tap into it with his mind. He manifested blocks to build megalithic structures. He didn't have to go quarry them. Now this is the level that we are trying to ascend to. Contemporary science tells us that the universe is made up of energy, matter, and light. Those would be what alchemists call sulfur, salt, mercury, and respectively. According to Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, energy and matter can be transformed into one another through the constant of light. In alchemy, sulfur and salt are transformed into one another through the intermediary of mercury.
Einstein.
It looks like if the little c in Einstein's equation really stood for consciousness instead of light, there would be no difference at all between physics and alchemy. Just that one little tweak will turn you from physics to alchemy. And let's assume that consciousness is light, and in that case, the emerald tablet for the 21st century might look something like this. Truly without hype, religious exploitation,
what did
or commercial
Einstein
consideration, you can
read?
experience higher truths. You are as much part of the material as you are part of the mental, and you are as much part of the mental as you are the material. In order to accomplish miracles of light, and just as all things come from this light, though through constant thought and concentration of consciousness, so do all created things originate from this light through the transformation of thought. Its father is energy, its mother is matter, the spectrum carries in its belly, its nurse is the earth. It is the origin of all consecration of the whole universe. Its inherent strength is perfected, and it is materialized. Separate from matter, from imagination, subtle from the gross, gently is the deepest meditation. The light rises from earth to heaven and returns again to earth, thereby containing within itself the powers of both the mental and the material. Thus will you obtain the light of the whole universe. All darkness will be illumined to you. This is the greatest force of all powers because it overcomes every mental thing and penetrates every material thing. It is the way that the universe was created. From this comes many wondrous manifestations because of this formula. Therefore, this deals with 3 parts of reality and shows the underlying relationship between energy, matter, and light. Now we have completely explained the fountain of consciousness. Okay, so we're going in, guys. This is some deep stuff. Mapping magnetite crystals in the human brain. So how do we download this light information? What's the mechanism, the actual biological technology that's inside of our avatar bodies that allows this to happen? Mapping the magnetite crystal. We've got magnetite crystals, billions of crystals inside of our brain of magnetite.
We are a crystal.
Now, animals use this all the time to navigate the planet. Birds flock south for the winter. Turtles know how to get back to their nesting grounds, right? Whales navigate the oceans using magnetite crystals. Guess what? We have them too. But we've been disconnected from them. Now, they put human beings, not that we've been disconnected.
People don't believe.
Somehow a veil's been put over for us to detect it.
We
They
don't
put a human
believe.
being in an actual laboratory with a magnetic field, very strong magnetic field, and then they put the
That's
cap on
where
the
science
electrode
comes in
to
today.
detect magnetism.
It's
And
no
they don't
more
detect
just
it.
believe
Then they
in
would
God.
move the field
We have to
around
know the
room, and no matter
science.
where they moved the field, they were detecting that the magnetite crystals were following the field in the brain, human brain. We still have the capability today, but we've been disconnected from it. We've got to regain it through meditation, through thoughtfulness, through research and investigation, through studying, through all these different things for what this whole expo is about, just to get back to where we're supposed to be.
To know.
Okay? It's a process.
Not
When you look
believe.
at tsunamis that come inland, right? You never see the wild animals dying in the ocean. You never see that, but you always see human beings getting swept away. The animals are, a good question. She said, why is that? The animals are in human resonant frequency with the earth. They're utilizing their magnetite crystals. They're downloading, uploading information directly from the planet itself because Earth is conscious. And they're getting warned 2-3 days, sometimes a week in advance before cataclysms happen, and they go to the hills or to the mountains. Human beings, we go right to the water, and then we stand there with the selfie stick and watch it come in, and we go, look! And then boom, we're out of there. I mean, we've really been disconnected, you know.
If I see a
This
way,
is good, man.
I'm sorry, that's
They
a
probably
certain
sit back
type
and
of
laugh.
people. Because if somebody
You know,
black,
but we have the capability, and to get back in that frequency, to get back in that resonance, to get back in tune with the earth and our inner self and the universal consciousness,
If I see
it
a
takes
wave.
some thoughtfulness. To be thoughtful and mindful that it actually does exist, and it's not some mystery, hokey-pokey thing, right? But it's a real thing that does exist in your body. And this is where the magnetite crystals are located. I'm showing you the evidence that this stuff is real and it really exists so that you can take away the mysticism of it, okay? Here's something that's really interesting as well. The neural correlates of consciousness. The parts of your brain that generate self-awareness. Researchers at the Allen Institute for Brain Science discovered 3 giant neurons. One of them is projected across the cortex like a crown of thorns. I wish I had a whole other show to go into to talk about what these thorns are really about, because this is really what it's about. It has nothing to do with the other thing, but that's a whole other show.
wow.
But this is real. This is real science. This is real
I
science.
have
So
to put
between
this link.
the neural correlates of consciousness, the neocortex, and the magnetite crystals, You now have a technological device anchored to this avatar body that allows you to upload and download information directly from space-time.
This dude is like,
That's right.
he's not
Something to
2
get
deep,
excited
he's
about.
like 3
So when
deep.
you hear people say, I'm getting a download, sometimes people smirk at them when they walk away. No, they're getting a download. Everybody's getting a download. Anytime you go, oh, I had this great idea for this invention. No, you downloaded it. Yeah. All information, and I mean all information, already exists in space-time. Already exists. What happens is, it exists as what? An electromagnetic frequency of what? Light. And then your neural correlates, your magnetite crystals, and your consciousness matches a subatomic frequency or a subspace frequency of that information, that data packet. And then you actually download it into your body, and if you're lucky, because everybody downloads it probably at the same time, a lot of people, but you discern it.
Yeah,
and you're
that's
able
why
to
you
then
got to keep your
regurgitate it,
lips
put action behind
shut.
it, and bring it into fruition.
When you got an
That's how things
idea,
happen. That's how
like I
things
have an
happen.
idea,
So this entire realm is all about uploads and downloads.
don't tell a whole bunch of
So when
people.
you hear people say that, you can't laugh at them and think they're crazy because you're getting the same exact thing. You just didn't realize it before.
No, I downloaded
The neurons connect to
a
the
new
claustrum,
kung
and the claustrum,
fu
like the
system.
conductor of an orchestra, it coordinates the inputs and outputs. Inputs and outputs. This is a technological device we're talking about, which help to download consciousness. This is coming from biological books, some physics books, some peer-reviewed science books.
Neurons.
I'm not giving you stuff that came from some
Deep
hocus pocus magazine about
neurological
spirituality.
access.
I'm giving you real science here. You're downloading information, and this is the mechanism used to do it. And this is important to understand because you can't get into a Merkaba meditation without understanding these tactics. And some people have been able to do it through going to different gurus that can teach you how to do it. Some people are able to get into it right away. Some people take them a very long time. Some people don't really understand why it worked, but they followed the guidelines and they've done the basics that were taught to them by the gurus, and they're able to get into it. I want to show you something that not only will allow you to get into it, but also allow you to pass it on to other people and explain why it works. So the people go, "You just another one of those crazy gypsies. I don't want to hear what you're talking about." But if you can explain something scientifically and show source material and say, "No, this is real science. This is not hocus pocus," you might catch somebody's ear. Let's look how powerful and how intelligent light is.
Technology transformed its ability to move. The result of a project by a group of international scientists who were able to bypass the injured part of the animal's spine.
To decode the brain activity is not really new. To stimulate the spinal cord is not really new either, but the association of both and to make the link between the decoding of the brain and the stimulation of the spinal cord and to make this communication exist is completely new.
If you have an injury of the spinal cord, messages from the brain aren't able to reach beyond it down the nervous system, resulting in paralysis. Scientists created a brain-spinal interface on a monkey with a paralysed leg, implanting electrodes onto part of the brain that controlled the limb. The activity and information it recorded showed the movement the monkey intended to make and was sent to a computer.
So,
Wow.
what's being transmitted from the brain? Waves of light, intelligent light, that then get picked up by a receiver below the broken spine and then decoded into the DNA and to the muscle fibers and told, "Hey, move this leg."
Fucking wow.
That's the power of your mind. That's the power. You can do this without the technological devices if you have a broken spine. There's gurus that have bypassed being crippled through spinal injuries, through thought power, through the power of thought.
Why aren't we able to do
Piece
this?
of technology that allows the
Because you got
decoding
a
of the light
job.
waves coming from
You
the brain
spend too much
to
time
do that. Every single thought you're thinking right
on
now,
other things.
every thought you're thinking is
Everything.
generating an electromagnetic wave that's penetrating your skull bone and going out into space-time forever. Every thought that you ever
Forever.
thought since you had conscious thought is in space-time. Every
Imagine
single
having a
thought.
place to
The
go where you
Akashic
can
records,
just do
real.
you.
The Book of Life, real. Why? Because Stephen Hawking said it best. He discovered that when you go into a black hole, oh, I guess what? I made a mistake earlier, guys. Things don't become destroyed. all information as it enters into the black hole is stored at the rim of the event horizon. So nothing is ever lost. Information can't be destroyed. It can only be transformed. All knowledge, all information that ever has been is always here and always will be here. Nothing is missing. Nothing is gone void. Nothing has been taken away from this universe.
We just have our own individual focuses.
So the thoughts you think are very powerful because they can affect other people. Because I can be thinking a negative thought from up here that can then interact with your field, your biofield, and your DNA wave, your torus and around your body that's operating in your Wi-Fi DNA.
Excuse me. So important. He just kind of like went through it, but that is a big part of what I'm teaching when I talk about just African Americans and certain, in the working of this business, etc. Anybody can take learn the Kung Fu, but it's black owned and operated. And that's the point he just made, is because if, I forgot the point being, but basically it goes to the unity of people. You understand? We have a certain unity. We've all been, some of us have been through specific situations, so-called African Americans, and we just have to focus on that. And I lost the point, so I'm just going to let him talk some more.
Could download my light wave into your body and affect you biologically, physiologically. That's the power. That's how powerful.
Okay, that's what it was. It's not just that we can download our thoughts onto other people. There are people, groups of people who are doing it consciously, on purpose, keeping us in a certain position because they understand this principle that he's talking about right now.
Thought could be. And just the opposite, you could walk through a room of people just like this, and you could directly affect every single person in the room with the power of positive thought without even saying a word. That's how powerful thoughts are. And that's why some people walk in the room, people say, I can feel the energy. That's real. Like, that is not an imaginary thing. That's truly a real thing. Kal-El, I thought this was just very interesting. Kal-El means light god in Hebrew, which is what Superman's name was. So it was kind of interesting tidbit. But can brain waves interfere with radio waves? They don't interfere with radio waves. But the reason why I showed this is because it says here that, let's see here, the human brain also emits waves. Like when a person focuses her attention on something or remembers something, the activity fires thousands of neurons simultaneously at the same frequency, generating a wave. Again, proving this is more physics here, School of Engineering. Waves of light are coming out of your head. Radio waves, which include radio and other wireless transmission signals, as well as other natural signals in the same frequency, peak through around 50 to 1,000 megahertz. That's between 50 million and 1 billion oscillations per second. So every thought that we have as well also oscillates at a specific frequency. So this is what I'm talking about, frequencies matching information in space-time. When you match that frequency of information in space-time, you can download it. It even goes further than that. Quantum walkers, like I'm talking about, quantum walking is a real term in quantum mechanics. And it's a real term, and how I stumbled across it, I was doing a walking meditation.
Okay, so he's, Bill Carson is out there. He's like kind of keeping it in, he got the suit and tie. So he's talking deep stuff, but he's not making it a black-white thing, da-da-da-da. Now, I wouldn't want to do that either if there wasn't a real reason for it. When I make it a black-white thing, it's because of the melanin. I'm sure he knows about it, but he's not talking about it. But what he's talking about now just made me think of we with a type of melanin, melanin, the melanin that makes us dark, that gives us curly hair, that gives us wide nose, lips, and etc., is able to bring us into places that other melanin type people, phenomelanin, Caucasians and Asians, etc. I'm sorry, it's the chemical. It has nothing to do with race. They taught us that. It's not a racial thing, it's a chemical. If you want to go with their science, we have U melanin, EU melanin, however you spell melanin, and phenomelanin. So, I'll get into all that.
On the beach in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which I typically do every 2 or 3 weeks. It's like a 5-mile walk. And this walking meditation, I felt like I phased out of this reality for a minute into another place, but the place was still here, but it was more technologically advanced. I went home and I said, I just felt like I quantum walked, and I looked it up, and it's actually a real term in quantum physics. And that's when I started researching quantum walking and how it interacted with Merkaba light meditation, and also how it interacted with what Thoth talked about in the Animal Tablets. So as above, so below. We learned in the little cartoon there that electrons were conscious. Because once the electron realized that it was being watched, it decided to act like a particle, right? When it wasn't being watched, it decided to act like a wave. So, as above, so below. So you're talking about looking at planets.
How do you know that if you
So
wasn't
you see here,
watching
you're
it?
looking at an orbiting a sun with planets orbiting it. You look at an atom with electrons orbit.
Okay, I just interjection there. He said that the particle acted like one thing when it realized that it was being observed, but it acted like something else when it realized, or when it wasn't being observed. So, how do you know that it acted like that? This is how my brain works. How do you know that it acted like that if you wasn't observing it? Because when you observe it, it acts one way, but it acts another way when you're not observing it. But how do you know it's acting like that unless you're observing it?
Reading it right? Planets are conscious. As above, so below. Planets are conscious. This planet is conscious.
I just thought
and this
that
planet emits a specific frequency. All planets have,
when you
all
smoke
planetary
herb,
frequencies have now
high
been
and
recorded
shit.
by the space agencies. You can actually go online and download the sound of every single planet and every moon in our solar system. And each one has a different frequency. And when you take the sound waves from NASA.gov or European Space, wherever you download them from, they're available, and then put them into an audio program and slow it down a little bit, it sounds like conversations. That's really interesting.
Oh,
Sounds
I
like
gotta check that one out.
But it's really important because your light waves also interact and directly affect the planet as well. And one of the biggest problems, or one of the biggest things that I see with human beings so far on this planet, is that we're not in a resonant frequency in harmony with the planet itself. In a lot of ways, we've been like a virus on the top, you know, and we've got.
Oh, it's not being like a virus. I think he might be trying to be nice because he's also considered a human being. But we are like a virus on this planet. But just like in the human body, you have good germs and you have good virus. I guess you have good viruses, but you also have Caucasian viruses, type viruses that just want to destroy and kill it. So the idea of a virus is that it can get into the cell easily and other. So there are some that are good because they're a virus that can get into your cells and do some good things. But the viruses that we mostly want to talk about is shit like is AIDS a virus and corona and all that type of stuff. And when you're thinking about all that stuff, guess what you create? You're God.
To really change that. We are changing. We're in the process of doing it now. We've got to become more in tune with the planet itself and more respectful of the planet as a sentient being, not just a rock to build a house on.
Emotive is kind of this wild technology. It's a way for you to control things with your mind. It has all sorts of new use cases, and I'm here at their offices today to get into it a little bit more.
This goes behind your ears,
Uh-huh.
and so you want your hair to be out of the way.
Okay.
And so we just put this on like
On
that.
the brain crown. Okay.
And then
Yep.
this goes behind the ear, so we'll just slide this down.
Okay. So this is my brain right now.
This is your brain right now.
Oh my gosh.
In real time.
This is wild.
It's pretty wild. What you're seeing is the localized activity right now and the concentration of activity. So if there's a particular area that there's a huge amount of synchronization and activity, then you'll see it light up. So right now we see.
Okay, so the technology is, well, this is like something. This is light. What I'm looking at. I don't know if you all can see it, but this is light technology, where you can put something on your head and see the activity in your brain. That's really light. Elon Musk is or has created a chip where you can put inside your head and actually interface with your computer. And oh my goodness, this is way beyond this.
Seeing a lot of activity there in the frontal and then parietal occipital. So parietal occipital
because
is,
I'm watching this.
yeah, so we can look at facial expressions. So we can tell if you're blinking, you're winking, looking left and right, furrowing your eyebrows, raising them in surprise, smiling, clenching your teeth because you might be nervous. So all of those things we can detect very, very easily.
Emotive has been prototyping its wireless EEG technology for the past few years. Proven in the research sector, they are now developing a consumer product for market.
Yeah, so this is a really simple use case scenario where the idea is I can just will this car to drive forward just with my thoughts. The way that the detections work is that you show the machine learning algorithms how you think about driving the car forward. So
Right, but I mean, when you're actually...
I can't watch the whole show because we got time here, but you can.
So now, looking at that, I just mentioned that Elon Musk has created a chip to put inside. You have to actually open up your head and put this chip inside your brain. And the video I just watched, I don't know if y'all can see it. I'm trying to figure that out. But anyway, all she did was put a, like one of them ear things on her head, and she was able to control the car. So why would you want to put a chip inside your head? And they, they been had the chip out that you put in your hand where you can buy shit. Why would you want to put something inside your body if you can? I wouldn't mind the technology of putting something on the outside of my head and then I can take it off on my ears or whatever, and I can take it off. I can control the situation. But putting something inside of your brain or inside of your hand, unless you were blind and you put a chip where you can see or you can hear or something like that, okay, I can understand that. But just to be able to interface with your computer and internet and etc., and you're a perfectly healthy person, I don't think so.
See, transmitted light waves with telekinesis. These are natural innate abilities that we're supposed to have without technology. This is the disconnected DNA that they're...
Without technology, This is the point, because technology would make it happen, and it's like, oh, wow, I can have telekinesis just like that. Well, what happened to the work ethic that people keep talking to me about? Oh, I have to really like do exercises every day to get telekinesis.
Calling junk DNA, which is not really junk. It's real powerful stuff that's still inside of your body right now that needs to be reactivated, which is why we're here this weekend. A lot of people are getting these reactivations or these ancient memories, or finding a way to go into researching and studying meditation to tap into the abilities that we already have innately inside of our bodies. Moving things around, I truly do believe that our ancient ancestors, before we became Homo sapiens sapien, we found the bones all over the planet. I believe that they were much smarter than us. I don't think they were dumber. I think they were smarter. And I don't mean technologically smarter. I think spiritually smarter. They probably didn't even have to speak with their mouth. They probably had telekinesis, telepathy, all these. They were in tune with the planet. They could receive and send information directly from the earth itself. They were in resonant frequency with everything in nature. And like I said, we're inside, I believe that we're inside of a conscious entity, which we're calling the universal consciousness. Some call it God, some call it divine Sophia, whatever you want to call it. I believe that this is what we're inside of, and the mechanism used to generate the illusion of the third dimension is a hologram, just like your brain projects its own hologram so that you can maneuver through the third dimension. A scientist observing an atom is actually a group of atoms observing itself. That's what we're doing here, right? I'm just a compilation of atoms that existed since.
Okay, he says a couple of things there. It's like he keeps saying, I believe that we have this and we can do this, that, and the other. And the point that he's not saying is to be able to for everyone to have these type of so-called powers takes a unified consciousness. In other words, he's on some high level of thinking, he can see this. But if there's nobody else up there with him, who is he going to interact with? And that's where the true power comes from, because if there are 2 and 3 and 4 and more other people who are on the same level and practicing, and we have the time and the putting in the effort and the practice and the work to practice these things, now each of us are feeding off of each other. It's exactly what he's saying. It's like 2 different atoms have to, So, okay, so let's move on.
It's the beginning of what we call third dimensional time, and it's been regrouped into this avatar format. Before I could have been a piece of a rock, piece of a star, but we just keep reformatting. And the beautiful thing about these atoms that are in my body that make up this avatar body, they have memory. Memory can be written directly onto each individual atom now in science laboratories. This is something they're doing now. So now DNA, now we're writing on atoms. Atoms store data. So if atoms store data, imagine how much information is in your body right now. The history of the entire universe is inside of you. So when we tell people that the power is in you, we really mean the power is in you. We talked a little bit about DNA storage. This is an old clip that I used to use. It's 5.5 petabits. They've got it up to 433 petabits now of data on 1 gram. They found out that a human body can store 13.5 billion years of data, which ironically is the age of the universe. So the universe literally...
Okay. Did y'all hear what he just said? He said that all the information from the beginning of the universe, uni meaning one, verse, I think it's Italian or some shit, meaning love, all the information in the universe is stored within us. in us, in our melanin, in our DNA, in every atom within us, within each of us as individuals, which within each of us as a unified being. Now, imagine if the being or a being you were waiting for to come be a savior called, let's say, Jesus. If he was a being that came back and saved everybody, he would also be made up of atoms, like Adam and Eve, atoms and molecules and maybe even melanin. So, what's the difference between you, me, and him? Again, I lost my point. Let's move on.
Is inside of you, literally. This is why human beings are some of the most coveted entities in the universe, because of our special capability, our storage capacity, our diversity, all the things that make up who we are, and we still haven't truly realized our true full potential yet.
That was the point.
The reason why they continue to put their boot on our necks is because if we ever realized, oh my goodness, we would be creating universes. That's how powerful.
Oh, you know what? This is called cognitive dissonance, because I think a lot of us, if not most of us, do realize within our brains, within our minds, consciousness, conscious, that who we are, who we were, or who we are, and what we are, But the other half of that, the yin and the yang, the other half of that is actually having a technique to actually realize who you are. How can you be a god if you're just thinking it? Oh, if I think it. If you in a real physical world, even though it don't exist, but if you're in a real physical world, how do you actualize the consciousness of being a god? Even a king or a queen said, forget about being a god, that's another level. How do you be a king or queen here in America when you think you're a nigger slave? In your mind, you're a nigger slave. Let's move on.
Powerful we truly are. We create universes. And we're working on that now, believe it or not. People are trying to create their own universes in the science laboratories through technology. But we literally have the power to be divine creators, because the divine source and the spark is inside of every single atom inside of our bodies. That is about DNA computing. I just want to read this one real quick. Of course, I have to skip a couple of these because you know how it is. Described in the Journal of Nature, physicists working on an IBM researchers working at an IBM research facility in California found that when the holmium atoms were placed on a special surface made of magnesium oxide, they naturally oriented themselves with a magnetic north and magnetic south. Why is this important? Because that's how you get zeros and ones. So they discovered that depending on the magnetic field that they interact with an atom, they can get it to spin up or spin down. A spin up would be a 0, a spin down would be a 1. And by doing zeros and ones, I can create digital code, which is what's making this computer show you on the screen right now. With the internet runs on zeros and ones, your GPS system runs on everything's on zeros and ones. All your TVs are on zeros and ones.
D.N.A.
Zeros and ones.
Oh
Digital
my
bits of
goodness
information.
gracious.
Not only that, Professor James S. Gates, professor in supersymmetry and theoretical physics,
You're gonna catch up with me.
Space-time, the ether of space-time, runs off of something called Adinkra codes, which were discovered by the Dogon tribe in Mali, Africa, thousands and thousands of years ago, and depicted in artwork when you take them and turn them into a three-dimensional structures, you discover that they're error-correcting codes. The same exact codes that Professor Gates discovered are the same ones that run search engine browsers and websites. So the ether of space-time that we're living in runs off of the same technology or same programming code that runs websites and search engines. That's what we're living in, guys, a program. We're living in a program. So brain scans can reveal your conscious decisions 7 seconds before you decide. Some people have talked about this, heard me talk about this years ago. So they took some people, put them in a room, and then they put the cap on their head to read the light waves coming out of their skulls. And they were showing images 10 seconds apart, right? And so they would show a bed of roses. 10 seconds later, they show a woman hugging a baby. 10 seconds later, somebody getting stabbed. 10 seconds later, maybe somebody getting ran over by a car. Just horrific scenes and like serene scenes. And what they were trying to do was map the human brain, what the brain lights up like, what it looks like lit up for specific feelings and emotions, right? What started happening was up to 7 seconds before the next image even showed up, the brain was transmitting to the computer what the next image was going to be, horrific or serene. So then they said, wait a minute, this is an accident. We weren't even looking for this. And they started doing it over and over again and duplicating this experiment and found that it happens no matter how many times you do it. There's always this buildup of advanced knowledge before the thing actually happens. So what does that mean? We're not living in real time. We're living in the third dimension, the third density. It takes time for the conscious stream of information to funnel through multiple dimensions, because we're multi-dimensional beings, until it hits the third dimension, avatar body, and it gets deciphered and discerned into what's going on. There's a delay process in that. Just like if I turn on DirecTV satellite on one TV and I put on cable on the other, the cable is going to be more current, the DirecTV is going to be delayed because the signal has to go to space and then come back. Okay? That's what that is. So that's what's happening. Right now, you're not seeing me in real time. You're looking at me as I was. Why? Because it takes time for a photon to bounce off of me, hit your retina, go to the back of your brain, get deciphered, then you project an image of what I look like. But by the time that happens, I've already moved. So you're not seeing me in real time either. Nothing is in real time. So this is where discernment is extremely important in your life, because you need to be able to discern future events before they happen, at the cusp that things are getting ready to happen, so that you can make the adjustments to navigate through this matrix.
That's
Otherwise, you consistently get caught up in things, you get blindsided over and over again, and not be able to detect things before they actually happen. You got to get ahead of that time wave. So we talked about the fact that light is conscious. We talked about the fact that electrons are conscious. Everything is really conscious. Your body is made of light. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Merkaba now that we have the basic understanding. The Merkaba, also spelled Merkaba, translates literally into light, spirit, body. The Merkaba symbol is a shape made from two intersecting tetrahedrons that spin in opposite directions, so counter-rotating directions, creating a three-dimensional energy field. This is around the human body. And this is literally a vehicle of ascension. There are gurus that can travel the universe in these, including Thoth the Atlantean, can travel throughout the universe using one of these Merkabas. Thoth went to many planets. He said, I traveled to many worlds watching civilizations rise and fall using his Merkaba light vessel. So it's a counter-rotating tetrahedron is what you're looking at here. So
y'all think y'all know some shit because y'all read a book.
And that basic shape around the edge of the body is like your toric energy field. And those points intersect with the most powerful points of your energy field, the Ka and the Ba. Those are the super hyperactive energy points within the Merkaba.
The Ba.
So I know that some of you have seen this before.
He's going into arrest.
Lock, I got him. Now take, now.
So this is the representation of being born again.
No, this is a representation of New York.
Being born again has nothing to do with some of what these religious stories is about. It's the elevation of consciousness. He transferred from the fake
getting out of New York
world into the real world through consciousness, through realizing and understanding
It's
that
a
what he was
picture
involved in
of
was an
Neo
illusion.
waking up
Now
in the
he's woken
Matrix.
up in the real world. Another thing that people will say is, why would machines want to use human beings as an energy source?
Ooh,
right?
we already there.
Well, every single cell in your body is at 0.07 millivolts of electricity. And you have 35 billion cells.
Here we go.
Multiply that, and you're at 2.65 or so trillion volts of electricity in your one body. You're
Feel
a
the
walking
heat
nuclear explosion.
that comes out of your
Literally.
breath.
Every single one of us. This is where the Qigong energy comes from. This is where Reiki healing energy comes from. It's extracted directly from the cells in your body. It's not mysticism, it ain't magic and, all this hocus pocus. No, it's real. When you understand how to tap into the energy meridians in your body and extract the energy directly from the cells in your body and focus them, you now have healing powers. This is where Jesus went when he left out of the scriptures. His name is Yeshua, not Jesus. Jesus means hail Zeus. When he left out of the scriptures, he went to Egypt to learn the mystic arts. To learn the mystery school. And then he went to Tibet to learn Reiki healing with his hands. And then he went to India to learn the mystic arts. And this is in the Gospel of the Holy 12. It's a real person that really did exist, not a mythical person. A real person really did exist and really had these capabilities through understanding how the body works. So let's get into a little bit more about this. So now the Merkaba,
some people say he
is fundamentally based off of the seed of life. That's the fundamental basis. This is where it begins.
Or Kannabis.
This seed of life structure, which is 6 circles with a 7th one. Okay, so you have 1 circle in the middle with 6 circles round. That creates the seed of life. And this is a really important structure because this is the fundamental basis of reality. As a matter of fact, this structure is in the base of your spine right now. From the time that you were went through mitosis and generated these first 7 cells, they're still
start
there.
out as 1.
Everything else divided out
then
from
it becomes
there.
2.
But this fundamental basis
then it
of these cells
becomes
is still
4.
there. This is a cross section of DNA.
It's like everything
So
in the
as
universe
above, so
does
below.
this.
No matter how low you go, how deep you go into this realm, you're going to discover the similarities that we're in a fractal holographic universe. And in a hologram, if you take a small piece out.
Okay, I haven't incorporated the hologram concept into what I have done. But it's in there too. But my thing is, again, that he's touching on how no matter how deep you go into your DNA and into the atoms and into the smaller and smaller and smaller, it's the same thing. And that you can touch on all those deeper levels with your consciousness. You can actually go into your DNA and make changes if you wish. This is what you want to do. But it takes practice. See, a lot of this stuff about the science is just a lot of talk and the information, and that is necessary because now that we're out of the just belief. Now that we're out of belief, we have to have knowledge. We have to have the science of how to do this and why to do this. Why should I change my DNA? Why should I do meditations to go into my DNA to change the traumas that might have come from slavery or something like that? You know what I'm saying? Yes, this is that time. This is we're supposed to be advancing. If everything just stay the same, or we still the same as we was in 1980. Okay, it sounds like the world is blowing up right now. If we're still the same as was in 1980 and 1990 and even 2000, where's the spiritual advancement? This is the next level. We got to take our consciousness, we got to take our minds and get deep into ourselves. We done did all the focusing outside of ourselves. Heaven is out there, God is out there, etc. Now it's time to go within. Let's let the brother finish up.
That smallest piece you took out is going to have a picture of the entire hologram in it. The only thing you lose is a little bit of resolution. Okay? This is important, though. This is part of the Merkaba. This is, cell division through mitosis. As you can see how we get all the way to the flower of life and develop life forms from this.
This pattern is the most balanced and optimum form for 8 spheres existing in direct connection with each other. The reason why it is called the egg of life is because nature uses this form in the embryonic creation process of every single...
Okay, I'm stopping this right quick because I just want to get a picture. What they're showing on the video right now is a picture of how, what they call that, the flower of life. And then right next to it, they're showing how an embryo becomes I guess a fetus. You understand how one, the cell breaks off into two breaks off into four, and it's the same thing as the I-Ching, and its connection with the D.N.A. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful stuff.
...or living organism on this planet, with no exceptions.
Okay, with no exceptions.
This
is the symbol etched into the stone at the Assyrian temple, which I showed you earlier. They knew about this eons and eons ago. Of course, that's me walking into the temple there.
Here we are at one of the world's oldest sacred sites, the Assyrian temple at Abydos, Egypt.
Usar.
Very little writing is
Usar,
found in the
not
Assyrian temple.
Osirian.
However, there is one very significant piece of information in that temple. It is a very faint but clear and precise drawing. It's not etched into the rock, it's not carved, it's burnt into the atomic structure of the rock in some extraordinary way.
Yeah, so the ancients had access to this information. So now we're going to talk about Metatron's cube. Now we're going from the seed to the Metatron's cube as we build up into where we get into the Merkaba. Never enough time for this stuff.
There is a fascinating aspect of sacred geometry known as Metatron's cube. And this is what it looks like. I've been making mandalas based on this archetype for a really long time, over 20 years. Thinking about it, contemplating it, meditating on it, just listening to it all these years. So the first question is, who is this guy, Metatron? Who is this being known as Metatron? Where did he come from? If you investigate, you find that Metatron was an archangel who was mentioned in Islamic, Judaic, and Christian mythologies, medieval mythologies. He was considered to be the scribe of God. So this would make the archangel Metatron the equivalent of the ancient Egyptian scribe of the gods known as Thoth, Hermes.
Okay, so Metatron, that is kind of off the chain as far as the other names of the archangels, because Metatron sounds like something from the Transformers or some type of shit. You know, like Voltron and Ultra Metatron, and you know, I'm like, Metatron? It's like, come on, where did they... Now it makes you wonder which one came from which. Did the cartoon come from the old books, or vice versa?
Now, according to legend, a scribe of God would understand the root principles of creation, which are almost always associated with sacred geometry. In fact, the archangel Metatron is many times pictured with or holding a cube. So that's a little bit about Metatron, the guy Metatron. But the graphic known as Metatron's cube didn't show up till later, when a medieval Italian mathematician named Leonardo Pastano discovered it. So the next question is,
discovered?
Why and how did Leonardo come to call this particular graphic Metatron's cube? Beautifully illustrates of Metatron's cube create. It's very easy to get a perfect blueprint of both the dodecahedron and the icosahedron. This is really significant, and this makes Metatron's cube actually work as a perfect blueprint.
What I wanted to show you here was, you see that dodecahedron there over his head? Inside of the Metatron's cube, you get this form called the vector equilibrium. And so the vector equilibrium is a source of unparalleled power. This is the energy source for the Merkaba. This is what I was trying to get to, but I'm running out of time. So inside the Merkaba is this particular form, and this form is literally the source for 0-point energy. Not only 0-point energy, where we can literally power everything without plugging anything in, but also it's the form of spiritual energy that can transmit your body to anywhere in the galaxy, anywhere in the universe.
Wow.
Through Metatron's cube, through this technology, tapping into this vector equilibrium, you can literally create portals and wormholes in space-time, according to some of these ancient
I gotta
systems,
get
like
in contact with this brother.
We talked about going through Darul and opening up these portals and going through these gates.
Right.
The gates that you're talking about in a lot of the religious texts aren't pearly gates to go into this golden, plated heaven thing. It's really the gates to go to gates. Stargates is what they're talking about. If you look at the ancient texts where a lot of that stuff came from, you find they're talking about stargates, which is what I'm talking about on Monday, stargates and portals. And I'm going to show stargates and portals not only on Earth, but also even on other planets in our solar system based on official
I need to
NASA
contact
images
people
and,
who are
and European
like-minded.
space agency images. So it's unfortunate we're running out of this time, but I really wanted to get all the way to the end of this thing. But these are all the same thing. So you have
See,
the
this is the point.
the Shriyana,
For my
the
land,
Merkaba, and the aura.
we don't run out of time unless
all of these are
some
the same
shit
exact
blow up
energy
or
fields.
something.
And how do
we
you
can
get
we
into
can
the
do
Merkaba? I'm gonna wrap it up
or
now, guys, 'cause
you
we're running out of time
or
now.
I.
But to
We
get
can
into
do
the
this
Merkaba, the first thing that you have
3,
to do
4,
is
5, 2,
you have to be,
7 weeks that we want.
You have to
Whatever.
Eat right, and this is important. Now,
that's the difference.
Some people don't want to hear this, but
own
when you're
shit.
talking about creating an energetic body, it requires energetic foods. Okay, I'm not saying you need to
number
be vegan
one.
and all this other kind of stuff. What I'm saying is, if you're trying to focus on
If you have your own
meditation,
land, you
which
can
is
grow your own
Merkaba
food.
meditation that you can just look up. You can just go to Google and type in Merkaba meditations. A lot of them that will pop up. You can go to forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4. There's a Merkaba meditation on my website. You can watch it for free, and you'll get a lot of information there as well. But eating right is very important because you have to eat energetic foods, which means a plant-based diet. So if you're in the process of working on Merkaba meditation, focus on a plant-based diet for that time period. I'm not saying you got to wipe it out of your body forever, meats or whatever, but for that time period, focus on energetic foods. Focus then also on unconditional love. In order to get to a Merkaba meditation, you need to be in a mindset of unconditional love, because unless you're in the mindset of unconditional love, you're not at the right frequency. The 528 hertz love frequency is the frequency that will give you the capability of getting into the...
Okay, so like I said, I'm not good with this computer stuff. I wish I can get the video that I'm looking at. I don't know if I'm doing it, but they just showed the audience, and it wasn't one melanated person in the whole audience. He's the teacher. He's the melanated. He's so-called black. And this is the whole point. They are into this stuff. And when one of us, so-called black people, get into this stuff, we have to go to them if we want to make a living, if we want to eat, or if we want to go beyond eating, and because they got the money. We have the money too, and there are black people that's interested in this stuff. But how many of us are trained to come back to the hood? The hood. People in the hood got money. God damn it. If you can buy $300 Nikes and all that dumb shit, You can come to a class that's going to teach you how to live forever. Take care of your body. Heal yourself. How much is that worth? Is it worth a $300 sneaker, nigga? Straight up and down. Let's move on.
Right mind state in the meditation to then see the Merkaba. And what happens is you'll see this video on my website that's going to show you the meditation. And during the process of the meditation, you're going to envision yourself standing outside of the Merkaba. Even though it's part of you, you're going to see it from another perspective. You're going to see two counter-rotating tetrahedron. Once you get about 15 minutes into the meditation, you're going to step inside of it. And then you're going to allow it to just take you. Then why will it take you? Because the frequency in the video is at 936 hertz, which generates movement. And that movement's going to take you places.
Now, what he's talking about here, anything that you visualize is actually happening. Like if you was the first person to visualize creating, the first chair. Like, before chairs, what was we doing? We was just, sitting all the way down and shitting in a hole. But then somebody created a chair, and then we sitting on the throne, da da da. But you had to visualize that thing. You had to visualize the car before you made the car. So what he's saying, you have to visualize the Merkaba, and it will become real. But you have to know the specifics of the Merkaba. If you create a chair, you have to know how many inches of the legs, how many inches of the backs, how many inches of the seats, etc. If you create a Merkaba, you have to know that it's a mirror or a pyramid pointing down, and it's a mirror or pyramid pointing up, and they intersect. And you might visualize it similar to the so-called Star of David, the Dawood Mogan, the Star of David. But they're spinning in opposite directions, da da da. You have to be able to visualize all these things, and you have to know the specific meditations and breathing and etc. to get into that mode. It's not just, oh, I read a book. You understand? You overstand? Do you understand? It's not just reading a book with some information. There are practices that go with real knowledge. Now, that's a whole nother difference. Reading a book full of bullshit is also not going to get you there. So, let's finish this video.
And you just have to let yourself go and go with the meditation. But now you understand why it works. It's working because everything is light, and the consciousness is light, every thought is light, and those light waves create the Merkaba, those light waves create the reality, those light waves create everything around us, including this entire universe. All right? I'll be outside selling my book. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys' time.
So, that was Ben Carson, and like I said, I'm kind of experimenting with this whole video thing. I'm gonna be doing my own videos, but people like Ben Carson, who are way more other stuff than I am, they're smarter, and this dude is I guess he's like a genius type guy. But I mean, he's fitting in with the culture, like I said, his whole audience was Caucasians. Well, like the dude y'all call Yahshua, Jesus, or whatever y'all call him, I'm here for my people. Now, I'm on the internet, so anybody can use the information that I put out. Like if I say, this is how you breathe, it ain't got nothing to do with black, white, Chinese, Asian, well, it's the same shit. But, you know, if you're from Mars, it's breathing. You understand? So I try to stay in that area. It's a human thing. But don't get it crooked. Don't get it, is it crooked? Don't get it fucked up. I'm here for my people. Ouch. I'm here for my people. People that look like me, got hair like me, got nose like me, got lip like me, got this beautiful brown melanin like me. You understand what I'm saying? I don't care who you are, you can breathe, but understand I'm going to be putting out stuff for my people until I drop stuff, until I'm transformed. I don't feel like dropping dead. I think I'll transform. And for now, I'm out. Peace. With a dag nabbit button, a dag nabbit button.